I want to welcome you all back to another study in the Word. Today we'll be looking at God operates in the spirit realm and He manifests things in the physical realm. And we're looking at Life is Spiritual series part 1. Now, there are many who are not aware that there is a spirit world that dictates what happens in the physical. They think life is just what they see. They are governed by their sight. No, the Apostle Paul says we walk by faith and not by sight. But there are many who don't even understand what faith is. And if you are such, you could check out the playlist and you will see I have several studies on the subject of faith, explaining in detail from a scriptural point of view what faith really is. And I break down Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 for you, which says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And in that I explain what that means. No, we need to understand that God is a spirit. And without any further ado, let us go into the word. Uh, Jeremiah chapter 33, 1 to 5. He says, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the second time while he was yet shut up in the court of the prison, saying, thus saith the Lord, the maker thereof, the Lord that formed it to establish it. The Lord is his name. Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, concerning the houses of the city, and concerning the houses of the kings of Judah, which are thrown down by the mounts and by the sword. And they come to fight with the Chaldeans, but it is to fill them with the dead bodies of men, whom I have slain in mine anger and in my fury, and for all whose wickedness I have hid in my face from the city. Now, if we read the book of Jeremiah, we'll see that Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet. He's the one who wrote the book of Lamentation. He laments for Judah because the all the tribes of Israel were taken captive by the Assyrians, by the Babylonians, and they were scattered and commingled with other nations. How Babylon and the Assyrians did it is that if they came and they did an occupation in your province, in your city or town, what they do, they take people from another country, another city, and bring them into your city. And they take the people from your city and take them back to another city. So you have the commingling of different natives and nationality. And that's how the Samaritans came about. They were not full Jews, but they were half-blood Jews. Now, Jeremiah, as you read the Bible, the book of Jeremiah was telling the king of Judah that he should give up and yield to the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. But they refused. They had occupation already, where the king of Judah at this time was to be a vassal to the king of Babylon. So he was supposed to pay tribute and he was supposed to do all that was in the agreement between he and Nebuchadnezzar. But what they did, they tried to usurp authority and to go against the covenant, the agreement that was made, in not wanting to pay tribute to Nebuchadnezzar and to cut ties with them. Now, Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon was a stronger nation in terms of military might than Judah. Now, if you had the other tribes of Israel with Judah, then there would have been a force to reckon. But they, with all the witchcraft and the wickedness that they did from Ahab and all the other kings that were there, and Jezebel, his wife, and the wicked kings all came out of Samaria. God scattered them throughout the nations, and Israel was no more. So Judah remained, and one of the half tribe. And Judah remained particularly because God has promised David that the Messiah would come through that. He had told Solomon after Solomon sinned that because of David's sake he did not take the entire kingdom out of his hand. But when Jacob in Genesis was blessing his sons, notice what he said: the scepter shall not depart from Israel, nor a lawgiver from Judah. So we saw that the lawgiver, who is Jesus Christ, had to come from Judah. But let's go into it, telling you life is spiritual. Now, Judah remained, these kings, Zedekiah and the other kings, they rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. Now, what they did, they caused Nebuchadnezzar was supposed to be honored by these kings. And what they did, they rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar and against Babylon. And Jeremiah was preaching and telling them that they need to yield to Nebuchadnezzar, to the Assyrian army. And if they had done, the nation of Judah wouldn't have been destroyed, the temple wouldn't have been destroyed, and wouldn't have been burned to the ground. So they cast the prophet into prison. And it says the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the second time while he was yet shut up in the court of the prisoner, saying, the Lord who is the maker. You see, the Lord here is all capital. That's the name of the Lord. Yahweh, the maker thereof. Yahweh that formed it and established it. The Lord, Yahweh is his name. And he told Jeremiah, call unto me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. And we're going to zero in now on verses 4 and 5 to show you that life is spiritual, that God operates in the spirit realm, and he makes his manifestation in the physical. He said, for thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, concerning the houses of the city, and concerning the houses of the kings of Judah, which are thrown down by the mounts and by the sword. They come to fight with the Chaldeans, but it is to fill them with the dead bodies of men, whom I have slain in my anger and in my fury, and for all whose wickedness I have hid my face from the city. The people of Judah was committed such abominations. The king had an idol in a closet hidden that he was worshipping. The king should be the head of the people. And notice, if the king was corrupt in Israel or Judah, then the people would become corrupt. If the head of the stream is dirty, then the rest of the stream or the river is going to be dirty and corrupt. And that was what was happening. They forsook the law of God. They broke the law of God according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, which tells you that if you hearken unto the commandment of the Lord thy God, then the Lord Himself will establish you. No, they didn't do that, so they were suffering, and that's how they got overthrown as a kingdom and were taken captive into Babylon, and that's how Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they being from royal bloodline, were taken and even made eunuch. And as what Professor Burns asked, what did Daniel and the three Hebrew boys did to become eunuch? But Jeremiah had prophesied that their offspring would become eunuch in Babylon, and that's exactly what happened. But that did not deter Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from serving God. No, look at it. The Bible says, God of Israel, God said this concerning the houses of the city and concerning the houses of the kings of Judah, which are thrown down by the mount and by the sword. So, in other words, God is telling you that they are already thrown down, even though it did not happen yet. God was telling the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, telling Jeremiah that their houses, the houses of the city of Judah, the houses of the kings of Judah, they are thrown down by the mountains and by the sword. Now you might be saying, teacher, how could this happen? The houses were still there, erected, the structures were there, the elaborate ornamented walls that were painted and as tapestry, and the gold and the silver that these houses of the kings had in Judah. They were there, they were visible to the eye while God was giving Jeremiah this word. While Jeremiah was shut up in the prison, the houses were still out there. They weren't torn down. They were not given to the sword. The city was not given to the sword. And it says in verse 5, they come to fight with the Chaldeans, but it is to fill them with the dead bodies of men, whom I have slain. Underscore this, whom I have slain in my anger and in my fury, and for all whose wickedness I have hid my face from. So here we see that God had already slain these wicked people in Judah because they are forsaken his commandments. Therefore, he sent the sword of Babylon, the sword of Nebuchadnezzar, to destroy them. So, even though they were alive and in the city of Judah, and Nebuchadnezzar had camped he and the army outside Judah, these people in the spirit realm, they were already dead men, dead women. The temple of Solomon had already been burnt in the spirit. The gold, the carved, the basins, all the utensils of the temple were already carried to Babylon in the spirit. It happened only waiting to be manifested in the spirit according to the time that God has ordained it to happen and fulfilled in the spirit. So here we see life is spiritual. Things happen in the spirit realm. A man dies in the spirit before it is manifest in the physical. You become sick in the spirit world before it manifests in the physical. You have an accident in the spirit realm before it is manifest in the physical. You receive that job, that promotion. You pass that exam or you fail that exam in the spirit before it is manifest in the physical. You get married in the spirit before you are married in the physical. Life is spiritual, and many people go about thinking that it's physical. They fight in the physical. They will do all that they can, seeking to secure success, seeking to secure things in this world, not knowing that for you to be successful in life, you have to be successful in the spirit realm. And to be successful in the spirit realm, you have to obey and hearken unto the commandments of God, His laws, His statutes. If you do not, Deuteronomy chapter 28 is there as a testimony. God says that you cannot be successful without being obedient to his commandments, hearing them and acting upon them, living them out in your daily life. Verse 5 tells you here, the people of Judah come to fight with the Chaldeans, but it is to fill them with the dead bodies of men. They have not fought with the Chaldeans yet, whom I have slain in my anger. God has already slain them in the spirit and in his fury, in his anger and his fury, for the wickedness which they have done, serving graven images, trampling upon the right of the poor, the fatherless, the widows. They were just practicing abomination, witchcraft, and all that they were doing. And God was going to punish them. And that is exactly what happened. The story is told. Two men, I won't call the right name, Bluster and Bluff. I'll refer to them. Bluster struck Bluff to the ground. They had an altercation. Bluff, being struck down, experienced what we'll call near death. They had to rush him to the hospital, put him on IV drip and saline. No sooner had Bluster struck Bluff to the ground that Bluster became sick. He went to all the different hospitals, all the different doctors and specialists. They say, Bluster, you are in perfect health. We see nothing wrong with you. But Bluster was sick unto death. Soon after Bluster died, life is spiritual. Up to this day, doctors cannot find what killed Bluster. But as it is stated, Bluff and his sons dealt with Bluster in the spirit. They were men of the craft, and he was not a Obeah man or witchcraft personality on the island that they have not been to and do not know. They killed Bluster in the spirit, and Bluster there, having a spiritual problem and was not aware of what was happening to him, thought that it was a physical problem, seeking physical remedy for something that was spiritual. In John 4:21 to 24, it is written, Jesus said unto the woman at the well, Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when you shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem, worship the Father. You worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh us to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, here my $1,000,000 question. If God is a spirit, you think that God operates in the physical like our man operates? No, God dwells in the spirit realm. So, man was made up of body, soul, and spirit, has to function in the spirit in relating to God. Man no longer walks as Adam did in the garden, in the cool of the day, God, because of sin, separates us from God, as Isaiah said, those sins and iniquity are separated from God. So now, for a man to commune with God, he has to do it in the spirit. And when we worship God, we worship him in spirit, even though the manifestation of such spiritual encounter is in the physical, because man is housed, his spirit is housed in a physical body that we touch, flesh and blood and bones. Now, we know that there are those who worshiping, just as the woman at the well today, many Christians, and that's why they suffer, they are sick, they are poor, and they are unsuccessful because they do not even know the God whom they are worshiping. They are like the woman at the well who believe that you have to worship God in this particular place. You have to be at this temple, this physical structure, for God to hear you, for God to attend to your prayer, to attend to your need, and attend to your care. But Jesus helped the woman to understand that you are worshiping who you do not know. In other words, Jesus is saying that you're worshiping, but you're worshiping in vain because you do not know the God whom you are worshiping. And he said, we know as a Judean, we know what we worship, we know who we worship. For salvation is of the Jews, salvation is of the Judean. He says, the hour comes and now is when true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, speaking in tongues, spinning around, babbling, foaming and frothing, and doing all manner of theatrics in church. That does not mean you are worshiping God in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. What does it mean to worship God in spirit and in truth? It means that you're going to be obedient to his word. It means that you're going to walk according as he has prescribed from Genesis through to Revelation. It means that you're going to put the word of God above the traditions of men, and that you're not going to subscribe to the traditions of men, denominations, organizations, or even family customs, or that some people say, oh, my family has been a Catholic, they have been a Baptist Adventist from over 4 generations now, but yet still the fruits that they bear is far from that which is recorded in Galatians 5:22: joy, peace, love, long suffering, gentleness, patience, and they do not show that to their fellow men. They are far from God. They observe the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. They are legalists like the scribes and Pharisees of Jesus' day. That Jesus said in Mark chapter 7 that you nullify the commandments of God just to keep your own traditions. And traditions will blind you to who God really is. Because God is a spirit being and God dwells in the spirit realm. And for us to have an encounter with God, we have to be in tune with the divine. We got to be in line with the divine. We have got to understand what God requires of us to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with Him, according to Micah. Many do not understand who they are worshiping, and that is what is happening today. Many inherit Christianity and thinking that because their mother and father and grandmothers were Baptist, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventists, and they're born to parents who have been baptized in the church, it makes them automatically right with God. They think that the denomination will save them, but it's a relationship with God, saved by grace through faith, and accepting the atoning sacrifice of Jesus Christ for our sins, believing in the death resurrection of Jesus the Christ, and knowing that Jesus the Christ is in the heavenly sanctuary ministering on our behalf. A man finished college and rented a room, and the landlord told him, do not let 9 p.m. catch you outside these doors. Now, being a man, you finish college and you on your own, working, paying your bills, renting a place, then no landlord should give you curfew time to tell you what time you should come in and how you should leave the premises that you are paying rent for. So one night, this guy said, man is man. Dealing with a man, paying your bills, paying your rent. So he set up one night because he wanted to find out what was happening 9 p.m. and after at this residence outside these doors. So one night he didn't go in. He stayed up and he took his time and screeched in at 9 p.m. into the yard, only to see the landlord standing at the door, between the door posts or lintels or door frames, whatever you call it, with a white fowl, a white chicken in his hand and a big stick beating the chicken. Life is spiritual. I'll tell you, he was not there just beating the chicken 9 p.m. because he had a white chicken and a big stick to beat the chicken. That chicken represented someone, an adversary, a person whom he did not like, a person whom he was seeking to destroy. And as he beat that white fowl, that white chicken, somebody in the physical, a man or a woman, boy or girl, was getting beaten. And who to tell, they might not know what was happening to them or who was doing such to them. That man was a witchcraft worker, he was a sorcerer in the occult, a dangerous man. Life is spiritual. No, in 2 Corinthians 10 and verse 3, the Apostle Paul says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. So it says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after. The preposition here used, kata, means according to. So we do not war according to the flesh. So it's not in the physical that we're not using fighting against physical beings. And if we go down to verse where it says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So understand that if we were warring according to the flesh while walking in the flesh, there would be need for carnal weapons. But the Apostle Paul is helping you to understand that this is not a carnal warfare. Therefore, we need spiritual weapons. So you understand that it's a spiritual battle that you are fighting. And many are deceived into thinking that their enemies are their neighbors, their wife, their husband, their children, or their co-workers, their aunts, uncles, grandparents. But it is the demons that are in them and working through them because they have not submit themselves unto God and resist the devil so that he flee from them. So they have become vessels of the enemy, and the enemy work through them to be obtrusion to you and to want to derail you from our track in serving God and worshiping in spirit and in truth. Now, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 tells us, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So here you understand that you do not wrestle against flesh and blood. The battle that as Christians we are in is not against flesh and blood. It's not who you are seeing, but against the unseen realities that exist, against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places, dealing with the different ranks within the demonic realm, principalities at the head, and those who are given powers and against rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. This is what we are fighting against. So this itself should tell you that life is spiritual and life is not physical, and that God dwells in the spirit realm and his manifestations are made in the physical. So whatever you desire, Jesus says you shall have, believing, and you shall receive it. So you have to be spiritual to do that. And because God operates in the spirit realm, such would be granted to you in the spirit. And then the time for its manifestation will be made manifest. Say, for example, you desire a job and you're seeking a job. You pray to God, believing of faith, and you seek after that job, you have that qualification, and you do the necessary thing that you are to do being a child of God. You will receive that job. But you are given that job by God in the spirit first before it is manifested to you in the physical when you are called by the company or the corporation, by the manager or the president, and you have an interview and given the job. So it is with applying for a college, a university, or a school. Such is done in the spirit first, and then it's manifest in your life as a child of God. So, whatever your situation, whatever your condition today, you seek healing, know that you receive healing first in the spirit, and it is made manifest in the physical. It doesn't matter what remedy you may take if you do not receive healing in the spirit. No matter what remedy you take, herbal or pills from the pharmacy, you will never receive healing. If you are sick, you have to receive healing from the Lord. It said, I am the Lord thy God who healeth thee. And Jeremiah, our prophet, says, save us and we shall be saved. Heal us and we shall be healed. So we see that healing and deliverance come from God. If you are buffeted by the enemy and you are stopped in your track, tied up by the witches and the wizard, their sorcery and their witchcraft, and you need to be set free, you have to be set free in the spirit because you're not seeing a physical chain around your foot, that you are stagnant in one place and you cannot move forward. You make 2 steps forward and 10 steps backward. And for you to be released from such shackles and chains and to go forward, such has to happen in the spirit realm. And you have to receive your deliverance in the spirit before it is manifest in the physical. Your enemies are destroyed in the spirit before it is manifest in the physical. It is not done in the physical and then manifest in the spirit. No, God works by order. The spirit realm is the parent realm to the physical realm. The spirit realm was created before the physical realm. God existed before earth existed. The angels existed before earth and our galaxy existed. The spirit is not subject to the physical, but the physical is subject to the spirit. And I hope you understand that. This is just the introduction to that which is to come. Hope that you share these studies, like, comment, and for those who haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe and be a part of this family. I bless you all. In Jesus' name, have a good and godly day. And remember, life is spiritual. God works, operates in the spirit, and manifests things in the physical. Bye bye. Until then.